religions here. So I want us to just have a moment to be with ourselves, to connect spiritually in the way that we can, as we would observe a moment of moment of silence, meditation, others would like to call it. But let us just give this time to ourselves. Thank you. I would like to also greet those that are participating online in different spaces. The spaces, I hope they will allow. If you are in South Africa, I hope you have got electricity. Sometimes it goes away, so goes those that will be in Nigeria and those that could be in Zimbabwe. We wish to greet you in the name of governance, democracy, and human rights in Africa. I would like to take this time to have each of us introduce ourselves very quickly. We do not have much time. We are starting slightly late, but I would like us to use the roving mics to introduce ourselves in the shortest possible way. Just tell us who you are and the organization that you work for. We start from that. The next days we'll introduce ourselves deeper. I also thought we were going to have, we don't have name tags, right? Okay, if they will come along, but tell us who you are, where you come from, and who you work with. I started it. My name is Webster Zambara. I work with the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in Cape Town. Thank you. Where do I go? From my left or to my right? Huh? Right. Okay. I'll start right on the extreme right. But I won't just start with you. I'll start with you.
My name is David Gomado. I am with CDD-Ghana.
Thank you. You know, I respect these gentlemen. These guys, if you are not careful with them, they can publish very poor pictures of yourselves. So be nice to them. They are taking us to the world. They are great guys.
Good morning. My name is Justice Mavedzenge. I am an in-law of this country. So respect me. I work with Laws.Africa. Good to meet you all.
Morning, everyone. My name is Chiporo Shkwaya. I'm also an in-law of this country. I work with the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, based in the Gambia.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brice Marshall. I work with the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, based in Banjul, the Gambia.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Kofi Guzo, and I work with the Media Foundation for West Africa.
Good morning. I am Francis Sowa. I work with the Media Reform Coordinating Group, MRCG, in Sierra Leone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Isabella Crab, and I'm with Afrobarometer. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mami Ekia, and I work with CDD-Ghana.
Hello, my name is Nana Manati, and I work with CDD-Ghana.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anita.
My name is Benis Bese. I work with the Chronicle newspaper.
Good morning. I'm Matthias Yene. I work for the Institute for Research and Democratic Development in Liberia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wamweni Samundengu. I am with the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy, and I'm based in Addis Ababa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sabina Morgan, and I work with the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Douglas Wanja. I work with Institute for Development Studies, which is a co-partner in this consortium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kujo Asante. I work for CDD-Ghana.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis M. Soare Ansman Samassi. Je travaille avec WANEP en tant que le chargé de programme alerte précoce et prévention de conflits. I hope you heard what I said. Eh? Okay, that's good. Thank you. I work with WANEP. Eh?
Hi, my name is Mutawakilu Mahama. I work with FS Ghana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Afi Jujo. I work with Parliamentary Network Africa.
My name is Gilbert Bokiti Boyfio. I work with PN Africa. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nana Kwabna Rampa Mensa. I work with CDD-Ghana.
Collins Osei, Save Our Environment Foundation, Ghana.
Good morning. My name is Isaka Gaba Abdu. I'm working within the African Union Commission, Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Addis Ababa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bonolo, and I work for the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria.
Good morning. My name is Elikem Gajakpo. I work with CDD-Ghana.
Good morning. My name is Adam Kuju. I work with Star FM.
I'm Idi Yere, Ghana News Agency.
Good morning. My name is Nansata. I'm the advocacy trainer for the Convening, and I'm also an in-law of the Zimbabweans at the other side. Thank you.
Top of the morning. My name is Lennon Munyai. I'm from the African Peer Review Mechanism based in South Africa, Midrand. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tumininu Daniel Ndukwe. I work with Yaga Africa, Nigeria. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Songa from Kenya. I represent the European Partnership for Democracy and more specifically the Charter Project Africa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Meredith Luanga Amia. I work with the African Court on Human and People's Rights, which is one of the organs of the African Union. It's a continental court, and it's based in Arusha, Tanzania. And I'm happy to be here, of course.
Good morning. I'm Abraham Jono. I'm with CDD-Ghana.
Thank you. We have to be very nice with you. I'm someone who is not that's where I first ate jollof rice in Makeni, and they also gave me poyo, so I would never forget that. For those of you who do not know poyo, you know it's in West Africa, right? Can you tell us what poyo is?
It's a locally produced drink that has some element or content of alcohol. You have to be careful when taking it. It's sweet, but it's at the end, it can create some problems.
Thank you so much. I felt at home in Makeni district there. Kenya is around because they are also hosting the next leg of this meeting, so they have to behave. I know the Kenyans, sometimes when you want a room to be difficult, you just need to put Kenyans and Nigerians in the same room. Of course, Nigeria has represented South Africa, Liberia. I had Ethiopia is represented. You may not come from Ethiopia per se, but because you are based there, you are representing Ethiopia. I saw my friend from Niger. Niger is represented. The coup leaders are here. Tanzania is well represented by my friend here. Now, I will not say much. When you look at the program, you want to hear the objectives of the meeting. Well, I don't want to steal the thunder from the key guys here, Nyasha and Paul and the like. They will tell you those things in detail. But one thing that I know is that these convenings have provided a unique space in which civil society and AU organs interact and produce some knowledge and share experiences. And our specific point of interaction is about data. What perceptions are created through research. So the main purpose or main objective of these meetings, as far as I know, is that they provide a platform in which civil society and the AU organs can engage using information that is well researched. And on that, I want to thank Afrobarometer for producing longitudinal research of perceptions around key issues affecting everyone in about 40 countries across the continent. So having data is important, but working with the data is something that we have been lacking, and these convenings are specific on that we are going to share the data that we have, look at their objectives, and find each other towards Agenda 2063. Of course, a few of us, when we say 2063, we begin to worry. But I am seeing a lot of youthful people here. In fact, the majority of people here are rather youthful. It's only me and my other colleagues. We know each other. We know each other. So when we talk of 2063, we are looking to people who are the majority. And the youth are the majority on the continent. Anyway, I would like to invite my friend Paul to come and welcome us. The last time I was inviting Paul was in Cape Town. And this time I want to be very kind to him because you never know, I may be a nah here very soon.
Thank you, Webster. Thanks so much. And let me first state that the welcome remarks were been given by our Executive Director, Prof. Kwesi Prempeh, but unfortunately, he's also had other engagement that he's attending to. So I'm standing in on behalf of CDD-Ghana. Dr. Kojo Asante, Director for Advocacy and Policy Engagement, CDD-Ghana, who is also giving us the keynote address this morning. My friend Webster, our aspect facilitator, Dr. Nansata Yakubu, our advocacy trainer, Mr. Nyasha Mpani, the D4GA program manager for South Africa, Mr. Douglas Wenger, manager for East Africa, Nana Manate, our expert communications trainer for these convenings, our Afrobarometer team and communications, our media partners, representative from the African Union organs, and we are blessed to have 5 of you here. The Political Affairs, Peace and Security, the African Peer Review Mechanism, the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, the African Court of Human and People's Rights, and of course, the Office of the Youth Envoy. We thank you for honoring our invitation. We know the commitments you have and the pressure on you to attend most of the invitations across Africa. We thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Data for Governance Alliance Consortium, and on behalf of the board, management, and the staff of CDD-Ghana, I welcome you all to this important 5-day multi-stakeholder convening on governance, democracy, and human rights in Africa. This convening, being held from today to Friday, 20 October 2023, will focus on enhancing capacity of Pan-African CSOs in the use of data to guide their advocacy and policy engagement activities. It will also deepen the existing platforms of the CSOs and the African Union organs and further enhance and deepen their interactions and collaborations since the first one in 2022. And to work more progressively on the core mandate of the organs and to co-create, as Webster said, co-create strategies that will facilitate the CSO's contributions to promote the work of the organs and to achieve the African we want. This is the second of the 3 convenings planned for 2023. The first one was held in Cape Town in South Africa from 25th to 30th September. And the final one will be held in Nairobi in Kenya from 6 to 10 November 2023. We may be wondering why these convenings and why the need for us to partner with other organs going forward. There is acknowledged trend of democracy backsliding in Africa, highlighted by multiple coup d'etats. And in fact, thanks to the African Peer Review Mechanisms reports of the Africa Governance Report that was issued this year, 18 military takeovers in Africa between 2003 and 2022. There are recent ones in 2023 in Niger, Gabon, not forgetting the failed coup attempts in Guinea-Bissau, the Gambia, and the island nation of Sao Tome and Principe. We are also confronting the changing climatic conditions that have impacted nations across the world, but lack of comprehensive strategies to respond effectively to the climatic conditions has exposed our continent to disasters and conflicts emanating mostly from the struggling for limited available resources, especially among the pastoral nomadics and the African large agricultural-based communities. Furthermore, ineffective management of the continent's economies by our various leaders with reports of corruption, nepotism, and state capture have resulted in poor service delivery, a pool of unemployed youth with a consequence of drug addictions, increasing youth gun culture, and the zeal to migrate through often dangerous and difficult routes. We're not forgetting the security of our citizens. The threat of violent extremism and acts of terrorism that were previously read from afar is now real and live with us on the continent, with the fear that more of the continent's youth could be trapped to join the radical and extremist groups because our states seem to be absent in most of our communities. These problems and challenges require that African citizens join hands with their regional and sub-regional bodies to fight for an improved and better continent capable of withstanding the shocks of the bad climatic conditions, create more jobs for the youth, and make the continent a better place to live, the Africa we want. Quoting the African Union Agenda 2063, it gives us 7 aspirations and 20 goals. I will just concentrate on only 9 out of the 20 goals. A continent that has high standard of living, quality of life, and well-being for its citizens. A continent that has healthy and well-nourished citizens. Modern agriculture for increased productivity and production. Environmentally sustainable and climate-resilient economies and communities. a continent that has world-class infrastructure crisscrossing across Africa, and a continent with democratic values and practices, universal principles of human rights, justice, and rule of law. A continent when peace, security, and stability is a priority, and a continent that engages and empowers its youth and children to be actively participating in governance processes. Colleagues, the agenda was adopted by the AU Summit in January 2015, and they also accepted the first 10-year implementation plan in June 2015. This plan projected a peaceful continent where guns are silenced, our youth are empowered, and fully participate in governance, among other things. The agenda is 2 years away to realize the first 10-year milestone, but the realities are hardly project any better outcomes since the 8 years upon adoption of the goals. It is upon the above realization that the D4GA has adopted the various strategies to mobilize Pan-African CSOs to proactively support the process and work closely with the AU organs towards the realization of the African dream. I acknowledge the fact that the AU's Agenda 2063 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals share citizen-centered approach to governance. However, this is also challenged by declining coverage, quality, and frequency of public available data for key data categories in Africa. Coupled with this, there is a lack of awareness and visibility of the AGP agenda and efforts to promote it. Civil society organizations often face challenges in accessing information about the African Union platforms and its processes. This project and its planned activities seek to tackle these impediments to CSOs and the AGP success in pursuit of the agenda. Among the various implementation strategies is the annual regional convening, of which the second successive one is being held this year. This program aims to strengthen the relationship between Pan-African CSOs and the AGA platform members by creating a platform for interface engagements among them and building capacity of Pan-African CSOs to access and efficiently use data for advocacy on governance, democracy, and human rights issues in Africa to support the Agenda 2063 to achieve the Africa we want. Colleagues, on this note, I'm very optimistic that we will be able to achieve the objectives of this convening. I extend a heartfelt appreciation to all participants on behalf of the consortium members for making time for this event. Finally, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the general support of the European Union, which made this convening possible. I therefore implore every one of us here to participate effectively and share our questions and submissions so that at the end, we can create a common agenda and strategies to guide our operations in the coming years. You are once again welcome.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you also for reminding us that we're going to use this week as a working space, and everyone here will soon be very equal. I know we occupy very important offices where we work, but when we are here, let us work together to get to the Africa we want. Yesterday we paid homage to the Asagi F4 at the Memorial Park, and one of the things that touched me and my colleagues was the speeches that were made as far back as 1957, 1962, 1963, and those speeches seem to be more relevant even now. And the question would be, where are we getting it wrong on the continent? We seem to know where we want to go. We are almost, many of our countries are over 60 years of independence, we just don't get some things right. And perhaps even though we can look and blame colonialism and apartheid as much as we can, yes, we should. But we should also look at ourselves and do what we should do right. I will share some examples of how we are just getting things, we seem to be getting wrong things right when we want to do right things. I want to take this time to welcome Dr. Kojo Asante, who is the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at CDD-Ghana, for the keynote address. Welcome, Doc.
Good morning, everybody. Just really nice on a Monday morning to come to an event and realize that all your friends from across Africa are in one room. Just good to see so many of you here today. I'm supposed to give a keynote address about unconstitutional changes of government. A very unpleasant keynote address. But it's something that we cannot wish away, something that we have to confront. So I hope that it would provoke and trigger, conversations, not just today, but throughout the week. And hopefully that we can begin to find some right strategies, to counter what is looking like a real tsunami that is confronting Africa, and the need for us to do everything that we can do to stem the tide. Otherwise, it just makes our work much, much, much harder. So let me stand on the protocols that's already established and acknowledge our partners, representatives from the AU organs, my friends here, media, who are also my friends. Welcome to today, and really an honor to be able to be here today at the Data for Governance Alliance second convening in Accra. Abrampa never takes me to the convenings outside of Accra. So I'll just take what I've been given. Really deeply inspired by the spirit of collaboration and the diverse expertise gathered in the room. When I saw my friend Justice, he knows everything about elections and courts in Africa, and maybe during the week he will tell you more about that. Representing different fields, governance, human rights, justice advocates, civil society generally. I really want to express my gratitude for this opportunity to engage with you this morning. Now, this convening is a testament to our own shared commitment to advancing governance, democracy, and human rights throughout Africa. The collaboration between the African Union governance architecture, organs, and Pan-African civil society is paramount in addressing the challenges that we currently face. By uniting experts from various backgrounds, we can develop comprehensive and effective strategies to promote good governance, strengthen democracy, protect human rights, and together we can make democracy work for all Africans. Now, this project, enhancing Pan-African civil society participation and engagement with the African Governance Platform in the protection and promotion of democracy, good governance, and human rights, reflects the critical moment we find ourselves, and Abrampa has had cause to talk about some of those challenges. We know that there's a rise of democratization in countries, And that will not only threaten our democracy, peace, and stability, but also our economic well-being of our citizens. And therefore, it is imperative that we empower and mobilize African civil society so that they can proactively address these challenges. We also recognize the interconnectedness of political and economic stability and strive to create a more inclusive and prosperous Africa for all its citizens. However, the gap between the nations with better governance systems and those without continues to widen. And insufficient resources and support also exacerbates the divide, making it challenging for organizations working towards these objectives. I think it's imperative that we all work together, have collective efforts to achieve a more inclusive and prosperous continent. Now, I know Abrampa talked about the state of affairs, but I want to give you my own sketch of where we are on democracy and governance in Africa. And since we are in the West Africa region, I want to sort of draw on some of my own recent experiences engaging on these issues in West Africa. So at the beginning of this year, I led a delegation to Nigeria under the auspices of the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, WADEMOS, to undertake a pre-election assessment and a solidarity mission to support CSOs in Nigeria ahead of the elections in February. For democracy promoters who had witnessed the ugly events of 2022 with the coups, and there were 2 coups in Burkina Faso, following the coup in Mali and Guinea, and the palace coup in Chad, we were determined to change the narrative in 2023. And I don't say this lightly. I was, at the beginning of January, the determination that, no, we have to change the story in 2023 was so strong. And we wanted to work very hard to make sure that the elections in Nigeria went well and triggered a different narrative. Now, despite our optimism, the Nigerian election turned out to be another Nigerian election, lacking credibility and legitimacy. But we gathered ourselves, unperturbed, and headed to Sierra Leone with a similar hope, bolstered by the successful pre-election engagement with key election stakeholders. I still remember going and meeting the head of police, the electoral commissioner, and I was very optimistic about Sierra Leone. I was told the right things. I was convinced that there was going to be a real commitment to credible elections. At the end of the election day, the collation process was marred by significant opacity and a declaration of a result that everybody, international and domestic observers, say is not credible. Our colleagues from the National Election Watch of Sierra Leone, that deployed observers to all polling stations, had to leave the country after they had released the PVT that showed that no candidate had achieved the 55% threshold to win outright. They were bombarded with death threats and threats of arrest for destabilizing the state. And I was telling my in-law that just recently in Zimbabwe, observers were arrested after their observation locations and their homes, the homes of the leaders, were raided. And their offense, that they looked like they were going to release results earlier than the Electoral Commission. So somehow the police could predict that this is what they would do, and therefore they were being arrested to prevent that. But even the idea that your home could be raided for just doing your civic duty, should tell us where we are And this, we are all involved in this work, whether as human rights defenders, as environmental protection persons, working security or anything like that. Just imagine waking up one day, going to do your work, and your home, your family, and people have to flee and leave their families and so on and so forth. So all across Africa, we are seeing a high level of intolerance and closing of civic spaces and the curtailing of civilian voices, whether online or offline. African leaders, despite the bad experience of Guinea, continue to flirt with the idea of term elongation, as recently occurred in Gabon, leading to another coup. Military leaders taking advantage of unpopular governments are greeted with jubilation in the streets with the province of the heavens, and in a few months are already failing. Just this morning, I read a report on Burkina Faso. When Burkina Faso, the first coup happened, I think was in January 2022. The 40% of the land space was under the control of jihadists or, different groups. Now, there's a fear that Burkina Faso will be encircled very soon. And will just be around the capital. That's where they can control. So, yes, the failings of elected leaders led to all the protests and the acceptance and the search for alternatives. But sooner or later, we realize that that is not the answer. You have an army of young people who are growing restless and demanding answers to the challenges of economic crisis, insecurity, joblessness, choiceless democracies, and hopelessness through protests online and offline. And then this is all layered on top of all these issues with the expanding geopolitical contestation between and among old and new powers in the scramble for Africa. And as civil society, we haven't even scratched the surface of that. What the Turkish are doing, what the Saudis are doing, what the Qataris are doing, what Morocco is doing, there's so many powers and interests that is at play that sometimes you don't even know how to sort all of that out for us to get a collective interest that we can all work together. But in the midst of all this confusion, this is also happening. And as civil society, we have to also pay attention to that. Now, I provide this sketch to illustrate to you the complex set of issues confronting all of us who seek to intervene to promote democracy, good governance, and inclusive development. It requires a strong investment in data gathering and analysis to inform our engagement on these issues, because we might actually do more harm if we cannot sort out what exactly is cause and what is effect. And it's almost putting a lot of pressure on all of us to invest more in data, good quality data and analysis. In essence, given the complexity of issues, we need to work harder to isolate cause and effect so that we can use our limited resources judiciously. Unfortunately, a good database like Afrobarometer gives us a head start. And triangulated with other data sources could have sharpened or could sharpen our interventions in some of the countries which are falling to coups. And I will illustrate some of that very soon. Sometimes it is a stark and painful reminder that if we provide the space for ordinary people to speak, and then when they speak, we actually take what they say seriously, then maybe we could have avoided some of the current situations that we are dealing with. So friends, let me share with you some highlights of the Afrobarometer Round 9 survey, which was conducted in 39 countries between 2021 and 2022, particularly also as it relates to some of the West African countries which are now falling to unconstitutional overthrow of governments. I will start with the positive story. So, can you show the slide on support for democracy? The slide on, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, the slide on support for democracy. So you can see that generally on the average, you're talking about 6% of Africans largely saying that they prefer democracy to other kinds of governments, and it's good across. It's higher in Zambia, Ethiopia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Uganda, Benin, and so on, Ghana, they are all there. But you can see very clearly at the bottom that you have countries like Mali, which 39%. And for South Africa, and I think it's also one that we have to watch very carefully, and I'm sure those who know about South African politics or Southern African politics begin to see some of the frustrations that are being experienced in South Africa. But you can see at the bottom there, Burkina Faso is also there. Sao Tome and Principe, where there was an attempted coup recently, and so on. And if you see the swing, so this is, I think, a picture between round 6 and round 9, between 2014 and 2015, and then 2021, 2022, just to show you the changes in support for democracy across these countries. So the negative ones are in the red, the positive are in the black. And you see Mali, within that 2 rounds of Afrobarometer, it's a 36% swing. Burkina Faso, 26% swing. South Africa, 21% swing. That's declining support for democracy. Guinea, negative 15%. So, and if you do the Afrobarometer analysis, you could get the signs that things have to change. Otherwise, these countries are going in a direction that is not healthy. Rejection of military rule. So again, for round 9, you see Mali. This is those who say they reject military rule. In Mali, it's 18%. Burkina Faso, 25%. And also, we know what's going on in Tunisia, right? 42%. Niger, 44%. Togo, Guinea, and they are there. And of course, Zambia, Uganda, which is an interesting one. Probably needs to interrogate that paper. Seychelles, Kenya, Mauritius. But again, let's look at the swing. Right? Mali. Over the period between 2015, 2022, about 2 or 3 Afrobarometers, 46% swing. Right? That's rejection of military rule. Right? Niger is there. Cote d'Ivoire is another one that we have to pay attention to. Recently, President Ouattara dissolved his cabinet. I think this dissolved parliament as well. Yeah. Okay. That doesn't look good. Now, the question, so this is a question, tolerance for military intervention. Then the question basically says, should armed forces intervene in the country's political process? So statement one is armed forces should never intervene in the country's political process. And statement two says it is legitimate for the armed forces to take control of government when elected leaders abuse power for their own ends. And whether you agree or strongly agree with each of the statements. So this is agree or strongly agree is your yellow. And then, you know, the red is armed forces should never intervene. Now, if you look at it, 82% in Mali say that armed forces can intervene. Tunisia, 72%, Cote d'Ivoire, 69%, Guinea, 68%, Tanzania, 68%, Niger, 67%, Burkina. So when these things happen and you see people jubilating on the streets, it should tell you something. All right? So, yeah, you have your low ones in Seychelles, Morocco, Mauritius, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and so on. So, my in-law, the people say we have to resolve it no matter what. It has to be constitutional. Okay, so, but the other dynamics which are interesting is that when you disaggregate it by age, you realize that a majority of young people are also the ones that are saying armed forces should intervene. So between 18 and 35, 56%, that's from this sample. And then 36 to 55, 52%. And then slightly for those above 56 years. So if you go back and you basically just see the balance sheet over time, over the 2 or 3 rounds of Afrobarometer, you see on a number of measures, right? Either you're getting a certain level of stagnation or consistency, you know, over time. So whether it's support for presidential compliance with court decisions, support for presidential term limits, support for parliamentary oversight, support for free media, support for multi-party competition. I mean, generally, it just shows you that people prefer all these principles. And in a majority, in very significant majorities. And over time. But then when you come to the supply of it, we realize that we are going down and down. So when people are asked about satisfaction with democracy, in 2014, 2015, I think, yeah, so 2014, 2015, fairly or very satisfied, 45, now it's about 38%, which is already very low, but it's getting lower. And then whether your country is a full democracy with minor problems, that's also declining a little bit, even when it went up a little bit. So the balance sheet is not looking good. And then if you kind of break it down along some of the measures of democracy, again, you're beginning to see a downward trend across Africa. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I think you get the picture. Now, what then do we do about unconstitutional changes to governments? Now, the West Africa region in the 2000s led the continent in progressive instruments, initiatives, mechanisms for securing governance like the APRM and all the supplementary protocols on democracy. But now is the arena of coup d'etats. The events of the last 2 years have challenged the efficacy of regional and continental bodies, particularly ECOWAS AU. ECOWAS in particular have suffered a significant credibility crisis as it has tried to deploy its traditional responses to unconstitutional changes in government like suspensions, economic sanctions. The case against ECOWAS is that its members include heads of states who themselves have extended their mandates illegally, or what we call constitutional coups, or are using repression to marginalize their opposition in their countries, close their civic spaces, so they lack any moral right to call the military out when they take over government. And this has been a raging debate, sometimes online and offline. Also, regional bodies are inconsistent with the application of international laws, like the situation in Chad and Egypt. So, you know, under the AU Charter on democracy, elections, if there's a coup d'etat, the coup leader cannot stand for elections, but it happened in Egypt. We know about Chad and the transfer from senior Debbie to junior Debbie, and then that was also, it's there, it's happening. So that has come to pass. So where there are clear violations of the Charter, there's this charge that the regional bodies are not able to respond. And recently, when ECOWAS threatened to go to war to restore democratic order in Niger by military force, there was an uproar. And then the Niger junta was claiming that they should be given the same treatment as Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Now, several questions flow from these developments and the primacy of the role of regional bodies. And they include, if the military can take advantage of any failing democracy or democratically elected leaders, and even sometimes, as in Niger, a conflict between the president and the military high command, then take over the government, and all they have to do is to negotiate a period to restore democracy, democratic order. What stops any ambitious military officer from attempting a coup? Because really, given what has happened in the last couple of years, if you are, it's only when you are successful in a coup that it matters. But then all you have to do is like, well, you gave Mali 3 years, you gave this 2 years, so why don't you also give me? Then what should stop the other person from also having a coup? Now, is there any circumstance that the use of military force by ECOWAS will be justified to remove a coup leader and restore the democratic order? Can we envisage any circumstance where you can use military force to restore democratic order? I remember when ECOMOG went to Liberia, so on, it was for sort of humanitarian reasons and other kind of reasons. But this principle, I think, is a very important question. Justified. Is there any circumstance where it's justified, where you say, as a deterrent, we will use military force to restore democratic order? Now, how should ECOWAS navigate the sensitivities of the composition of its own membership and their actions and the credibility of the actions that it takes through the ECOWAS protocols. Because right now, it's almost difficult when your people are behaving badly and they are the same people calling other people to behave correctly, then it becomes a problem. How should ECOWAS navigate? Now, these are my general thoughts on these issues. First of all, we need ECOWAS and AU if we are to collectively tackle the transnational problems of insecurity, extremism, economic crisis, bad governance, and democracy decline. In essence, we should not throw the baby with the bathwater. The description I gave about Burkina Faso, Ghana is threatened, and we're already beginning to see the effects of that. If Burkina Faso completely disintegrates, it's a huge problem for a lot of countries. Northern parts of Togo, Benin. And the only way you can solve these problems is through transnational action. So we cannot destroy the regional platforms because we believe that it is not able to do its job. We have to find a way to still work with it, but work with it so that it can respond. Second, even though the best antidote to coup d'etats is democratic governance and a highly meritocratic and disciplined security force that respects fundamental human rights, African leaders must also demonstrate a rejection of constitutional coups by legislating against term elongation. So we know that in the long term, if we have good governance, if we have a political regime and system that delivers on the material needs of our people, if we have fundamental human rights that are respected, we're not going to be talking about coups. But at this point, now the military leaders are also looking and seeing all these people extending their terms in office, changing constitutions, and they are making that as a case. What's the difference? Because I'm using a gun and you are using repression and other kinds of forms to also stay in power. What's the difference between the two of us? If African leaders want to lead this charge to stop unconstitutional overthrow of government, then they also have to show that there is a real commitment to term elongation. I show you the Afrobarometer, overwhelming support for term limits is there from the people. So that has to be legislated across Africa. Third, there has to be a deterrent to unconstitutional overthrow of government. And it is difficult to take military force off the table. Otherwise, what else? What is the deterrent? At the moment, there isn't. If you're successful, it's more likely that you're going to stay. Admittedly, much difficult to do in a multipolar world. And the recent example is Niger, where there was a disagreement between ECOWAS and AU on the approach. There's a disagreement between the French and the Americans on the approach. And all kinds of actors also weighing in, making it very, very difficult for regional bodies to take their right or to work collectively as a body. Lastly, if ECOWAS is to move from an ECOWAS of states to an ECOWAS of people, then you have to reform by beginning to engage with its people, using all its organs like the ECOWAS Parliament and others. The AU, for example, have been engaging with CSOs on the ECOSOC mechanism to set up platforms for CSO input into decision-making at the AU, and this should be embraced by civil society. ECOWAS have begun discussions about something similar but yet to be implemented. And I think making sure that we also formalize these processes of engagement and our interaction with the regional bodies, I think is also an imperative. And we should take advantage of these platforms that have been initiated, particularly by the AU, and also, as I said, ECOWAS intends to do the same. My friends, civil society represented here today play a pivotal role in safeguarding democracy. Through our advocacy, research, and collaboration, we can influence public opinion, hold governments accountable, and contribute to preventing unconstitutional changes in government. It must be stated that doing our job is much more difficult as the spaces close and human rights defenders are attacked. However, we cannot withdraw from the public arena and cede the space to undemocratic forces. We must be brave and adapt to the changing environment. We must also continue to collaborate and coordinate our efforts so we can be each other's keeper. I want to use this platform to recognize the bravery of the leaders of the National Election Watch, NEW, of Sierra Leone, and the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, ZESEN, for persevering with their duties and exercising their constitutional rights in the face of adversity. Those of us gathered here are fortunate because we're going to be able to increase our knowledge and build our skills for research, analysis, and advocacy. This should stand us in good stead as we confront the challenges of today and tomorrow. I wish all of you a very productive week, and thank you very much for your attention.
Another round of applause for Doc Asante. Thank you, Doc. You touched on very important issues, but the advantage we have for having you is that you are not only a data collector or analyzer, you also work in the field to do the work. That gives us a chance to engage with you at that level. The issues of the youth bulge, and constitutional changes of government. And when Mugabe was toppled in 2017, we were celebrating in Zimbabwe. We celebrated. I was there, and I also celebrated. But a few years later, when other coups were happening, people in Zimbabwe, I will ask, will be saying, "Hey, did you hear there's a coup in Burkina Faso? Should we tell them?" Then after these elections, I mean, you know, Zimbabwe's elections come after Nigeria's elections and Kenya's elections, and they will be followed by DRC elections in December. They tend to have the same line of electioneering. Some Zimbabweans actually think another coup is needed, such that even though we know that the coup did not deliver the dividends, but when there was a coup recently in Gabon, some Zimbabweans were saying, why is our God giving us answers in Gabon when we want the answers to be here? So the issue of people celebrating coups is a big worry, but it also speaks to us not calling each other to order. So your role of ECOWAS AU is key. I want to take this time, ladies and gentlemen, we can't let Dr. Asante go. I want us to engage with what he has posited, because it comes from longitudinal research, and that is one of the big advantages of Afrobarometer data, that you can trace where things are going. And you said South Africa is a country to watch. I have lived in South Africa for almost 20 years now. I always speak nicely about South Africa because they give me a home, and Bonolo is here, she may take me to task. But people are beginning to question. South Africa has got very strong institutions, everything. But people are saying, do we really eat democracy if changes are not happening? For the upteenth time, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. And it's not by accident. It is because of apartheid and colonialism. And if our leaders do not reverse those challenges, the people get agitated. 80% of arable land in South Africa is owned by about 6% of the population who happen to be white. That is not a historical accident. It is by design. So when people are crying out for land, they are crying out for things that they are yearning for. And it would be said for Southern Africa and Africa, if South Africa it's falling in our eyes. I can tell you a story of when I went to South Africa in 2005. A colleague from Burundi had a torch, a lamp, a solar lamp, and we were sharing a room. And I said, why do you need that? He asked me, Webster, where can we put this lamp? I said, why do you need it? He said, in case electricity goes. I said, young man, this is South Africa. Electricity does not go. If I would meet him now, I will be telling him that they've massaged it, that it's not a blackout, it's load shedding, but sometimes we go for 12 hours a day without electricity. And the story goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to ask Dr. Asante on these very key issues, or even engage with him, because he may not be with us for the rest of the week. He is so busy. Let us engage with him and touch on those issues that affect our continent on democracy and governance. Anyone who wants to give a first shot? I see one hand here. I see another hand there. Oh, okay. Right. Let me count from my right. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. 5 hands so far on this round. We can start. May you tell us who you are again so that we catch your name.
Hello? Yeah, I think it's working. Yeah, my name is Gilbert Bokete Boifio with Parliamentary Network Africa. Doc, thank you for your presentation. And one thing that was very clear in your presentation is the fact that our leaders are not living up to expectation. And secondly, that the institutions that are supposed also to be working in our interests are not doing the same. So, Doc, I just want to take you a little bit away from West Africa to the AU properly, and then the various structures within the AU, the organs. Because for me, this is a question that has been on my mind for a very long time. And at PN Africa, one of our flagship programs that we run, the APPN, has taken, is embarking on a campaign on that particular subject matter. Doc, I don't know whether you are aware about developments at the Pan-African Parliament, the current ongoing leadership struggle, and the role the commission, the AUC, is playing in that. In our statement, we indicated that structures needed to be allowed to work and lay down procedures should be used. The AU Constitutive Act clearly indicates when matters of interpretation comes up, which structures should be used. In this instance, we're of the view that it looks like that is being circumvented, right? And others are taking matters into their own hands and doing what they want to do. And if this is happening within the organs of the AU, how do we expect them to, you know, addressing the issues that are happening in our various countries? Secondly, we know that parliaments all over the world are very independent, you know. However, in the situation of the Pan-African Parliament, it doesn't seem to be so, because the Pan-African Parliament, of course, yes, we understand the Malabo Protocol is yet to be ratified by most member countries. However, that does not prevent the parliament from being a parliament, you know. But the AU budget, for instance, if you go through the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament, it's clearly stated there that should come to the Pan-African Parliament. It hasn't. There are so many things that is being done to undermine the Parliament. And we know the role Parliament plays in our governance structure. And so even if at the AU level, things of this nature is happening, how do we expect them to, call our countries to order when even within themselves there is confusion? So, Doc, if you can answer this question for me, I'll be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions. We are going to my friend there.
Hello.
May we take just 30 seconds to ask our questions so that all of us will have the chance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think Sierra Leone is the most recent example of issues around democracy at risk. As we speak, mediation efforts should start today as to how to address, to remedy the issues that came out from the elections. My question is to all of us within the regional space dealing with civil society issues. Aside the issue of supporting our colleagues in New, for example, in Sierra Leone, and condemning state actors and commending colleagues. To my mind, those two seem to be the key strategies we are using. What else can be done? I'm not sure it's enough to just condemn state actors and condemn our colleagues. Like those in Sierra Leone, I mean, we know what they suffered from. Now we are commending them. What can we do beyond condemning and commending?
Thank you. May you give a mic?
Thank you, Doctor, for the submission. Very insightful. So my question is quite straightforward and brief, that given the demographics of Africa being a youthful continent and the population explosion giving indicators that it's still going to be youthful, and the fact that unconstitutional transitions, we see people jubilant on the streets, happy, excited, and the fact that democracy is supposed to be a representation of what the people want, how do we juxtapose this with young people coming out jubilating over the fact that the military has junted or there's been a coup? And what role will our multilaterals and our regions play, the SADCs, ECOWASs, and AUs, in response to this? Because the youth are the future, and they are the ones jubilating over an unconstitutional junta. How do we juxtapose the situation?
Thank you so much for that question. The next is you, right? Thank you. Taking a round of 5.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sorry this morning when I introduced myself in French, and I created a lot of problems. So my apologies. Thank you very much, Doc, for this wonderful presentation. Actually, following your presentation, I noticed that despite all the challenges, we still have hope for democracies to flourish in Africa. But when you look at the conversation, listening to our leaders, even young people, oftentimes what comes is that we should conceptualize democracy in Africa. So as an expert, so what is your take on this one? The conceptualization of democracy in Africa? Because many people are against like what is happening now in the across the continent. So what is your take on the conceptualization of democracy in Africa? Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
Thank you very much. Before I give my submission, I want to assure my brother he can speak in French. Everybody here understands French perfectly. Please feel free. Go ahead. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Asante. The presentation really hit home and also was delivered with a lot of passion. We've realized that in recent times, people give research findings as if it's a chore, you know, but because he lives the work, he gave it in the context, and I'm happy that we've all bought into it. I had a couple of comments and then one question. The first comment is about South Africa. And I was just whispering to Lennon that in 2001, I hope we were all born by then. When I was doing my master's thesis, I wrote on South Africa's Truth Commission. And then I went to South Africa. And in my little mind, when I was analyzing, I actually predicted that 10 years after South Africa's experiment, they are going to start imploding like the rest of Africa. My professor disagreed. He didn't want to pass the work. Luckily, I had Professor Kumadu, who is more ways than one. I could said, no, if she predicts, let it be. And I'm telling you, didn't even get to 10 years. And we can assure them that if they don't do anything, they shall be learning about coups from us very soon. Okay. And then the newest baby on the block is Liberia. We didn't mention Liberia. Just last week, the elections happened. And I'm sure you are already seeing what is going on there, not different from what we've seen in the other places. I wanted to ask Dr. Santi about Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, all our Francophone friends. And my question is, with this level of chaos and atrocities, do you think ECOWAS and AU should engage France instead of leaving the countries to engage France? That is my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There you have it, Doc. You can respond while you are seated there if you so wish.
All right. Okay. These are tough questions, but I know I'm not here to give answers. Here to give thoughts. on the issue about leadership and institutions, you know, with AU, but it's the same also with ECOWAS. So if you talk to and some of the regional bodies are represented, the technical side of it, they know all the answers. They can tell you the papers they have written, the actions that they want to take, but it's very much also a very political institution. You know, we've seen in ECOWAS when this matter, you know, when the coup happened in Guinea, for instance, the heads of states agreed that immediately we should put on the table the term limits legislation. A number of Francophone countries who have been stopping it because it's done by consensus. They are the ones that sponsor commissioners and so on and so forth. They can influence them. But I think the answer is basically what we are doing. You know, this engagement that we are doing, it's not just the convenings, but formalizing this engagement, because we need to be in the space. I mean, what is happening, it's about our lives. If we want to live on this continent and live peacefully and prosperous and all of that, we have to take our own destiny into our own hands. So we need to find spaces and occupy those spaces wherever we can. And particularly within the regional bodies, this is what, you know, so what PNA is doing, just like you've occupied Parliament in Ghana, and you are there, you're trying to make sure that you impact what is happening, the same way we should do with the Pan-African Parliament, the same way we should do with the other organs. It's a lot of work, it stretches us, but there's no other option. If the people for whom all of these institutions have been set up, you know, it's not delivering, then the people have to take these matters into their own hands. And we have to find strategies. Of course, it will take resources and all of that. But I think, for me, what I've seen that works is the coordination. Because we have people that are doing different things. And together, and if they are sharing information, they are coordinating their efforts, I think there's a lot that can be done. So I think even this D4GA project, for me, is so essential. That's one of the things we haven't done well with our regional bodies. But we have to do it with ECOWAS, we have to do it with AU and other SADC and so on and so forth. SADC used to be very vibrant. And Nasita is here. In the early 2000s, it was one of the leading, civil society engagement and so on. The most recent I heard of SADC was in the Zimbabwe elections, and at least they did come through and said the right things, but it's a shadow of itself. But I think citizens need to enter that space again, particularly with SADC. On the issue about commending and condemning and what other strategies, I mean, as for the strategies, there are many. There are many. It's not every one that we can talk about here, but I think where we are, we have to understand what we are confronted with, right? Because sometimes people are just completely unreasonable. The kinds of agendas that they have, it cannot serve our needs, and they have to be confronted. They have to be confronted, and confronted early. I think sometimes we wait till very late in the process, but we have to call people out. The people who are become presidents and MPs, and they are the same, they come from our communities. We go to school with them. How is it that we are not able to tell them in their face when something is going wrong? And somehow we create this space between us as citizens and our leaders. And we are seeing all the problems that they are causing. So I think it's civil society also getting more organized, but also being able to account to themselves. Because in Sierra Leone, I've never seen anything like this, where a group of civil society go and welcome the new or re-elected president and say that we also have expertise, so that if you want ministers, civil society is ready to provide ministers for you. And on national television. So civil society itself, we have to, and if people are not going to be accountable, then we shouldn't associate with them. We should call them out. Let us know that you are not representing civil society. So I think that, as I said, as for the strategies, there are many, but I think for me, it's the coordination, the collaboration, because we can't do it alone. To be able to provide a safe haven for our brothers and sisters when the Sierra Leone thing happened, or in Nigeria in the NSAS or whatever. Those things are all very, very important for people to feel not alone, because it's a very difficult space to work with. The issue about the young people going out when there's a coup, I think people will say, as for people jubilating when there's a coup, it's like a feature of Africa for a long time. But it's very interesting that it's the conversations around coups that is worrying. There's some sort of a moral equivalence. Well, our leaders are misbehaving, and so if the soldiers take over, why not? I mean, what's the difference? Almost a sort of a protest, right? But they don't understand that a military officer will not give you space for you to express yourself. In Burkina Faso, the medical doctor who went to, I think it was it an online post or whatever, that he said that, well, he doesn't think that they are doing well with the security problem. And basically he was given a gun and sent to the front lines. When Burkina Faso doesn't have health workers, so this leader thinks that it is beneficial to his country for one of the few doctors that are there to be sent to the front lines to be killed. And that he's showing his strength or a warning to people. But that is what you get. So the initial euphoria and the protest, and you feel like, yes, at least they've gotten rid of the other guy. But what do you create? You even create a much more difficult environment. And that's what's happening with Mali, with Burkina Faso. The security situation have deteriorated. So anybody that express dissent or share an alternative is an enemy of the state. They have to be gotten rid of. And it's creating even more problems. And it's one of the reasons why I come to, Nasata's question, how we go about this. But this question about, do we need an African democracy? Unfortunately, I think it's a wrong question, because what is democracy? Fairness, the one man, one vote, or one woman, one vote, transparency, accountability. When we say democracy, what is it? Isn't that what we are saying? Inclusion. That it's not necessarily that because you're in a majority, you dominate. That even if you're a minority, you should have the same rights as the others. What is so different from that? Even in our own African systems, before we had the state, these are the things that we promoted. So when I think of democracy, I think of it in terms of principles and values. Are those principles and values shared? But when an African leader comes and says, no, I would take the state, other people's wealth, and appropriate it for myself and my family and all of that. So no, maybe if we have a different conception of it, maybe they will act differently. Even in our own society, that kind of behavior, you will not be tolerated. So why are we tolerating it? And this is going on, yes, there are certain things like financing campaigns, all of these excesses, but have we really sat down and asked ourselves, do we need people to put billboards and posters in order for us to have elections? In Scandinavia and in other places, they do elections. They don't spend the kinds of monies that we are talking about in Africa. They don't go and buy 300 pickups. So some of the costs related to it's completely unnecessary. But we are not interrogating that. So one of the projects that we've been working on, which we call Democracy Capture, is that in trying to just explain why, democracy has not delivered, it's because the processes and the institutions of democracy have been captured by a few people who use it to their own ends and not for the people for which it is intended. So they capture the media, they buy all the licenses, they own it, they set the agenda. Now media is supposed to educate, inform the people, and they use it for something else. They capture parliament, they capture the judiciary. So we have to examine that the answers that we seek is in democracy itself. And it's whether or not we are disciplined enough to subject ourselves to the principles and values we espouse around democracy. We want to eat our cake and have it. And I think that's where the problem is. On Nasata's problem, yes, I mean, I think on all of this, we have to do something about the security situation in the Sahel. There's no, when you hear the conversations, it's a conversations that is only limited to security people. Where are the citizens? They are the ones that are being driven out, displaced. They are the ones that are threatened. Nobody is engaging in this conversation. It's so up in the air, and the people involved. So there's an anti-French movement that is going on. The youth have caught on to it, and it's true. France has done all kinds of things in that place. Its absence is because it has been so dominant in the place. Its withdrawal without any alternative is creating problems. But they are all other actors. They are Russians acting there. They are all these groups. So I think civil society itself, when we are having this conversation, that's why I keep saying that we have to consider the geopolitics. And it's a conversation that we have to have. We cannot ignore, because it's impacting on our space. So as for the France problem, it's a real problem, and it has to be confronted. You know, if France, like it did in Guinea, Touré's time, it just packs everything and leave. And that suggests that itself, it has not, you know, reformed in terms of its own view of how it to engage with its former colonial countries. So the France issues there, the US, the Russians, the Chinese, there has to be an engagement around security there, because it threatens everybody in the sub-region. And now, as they say, you have an axis of conflict. You have one in the Sahel. Now you have the Palestine, the Israeli in the Middle East, and then you have one in Europe. And once you have that, you are basically threatening yourself or moving closer to a bigger war that threatens the whole world.
Thanks for your responses, my guy. The issue of African democracy, the issue of the role of citizens, the issue of where we are in the global arena of things playing out, where the news dominating now would have, like the war in Sudan has stopped. It hasn't stopped. It will appear like the situation in southwest Cameroon has improved. It hasn't. It will appear like everything is normalized, yet it's not. I also appreciate how you tackled the issue of our political classes. The people in the with political roles are people whom we sometimes know. And it was surprising that only when the president was removed in Gabon, he started saying, make noise. So certainly we need to make noise. Certainly he knew that they were citizens. So yeah, we are where we are now. If I would go by the program, I want to thank you for, is there anyone with a hot question? Something that is burning? If not, thank you, Dr. Sande, for being with us. A big round of applause for him again. We are going to have a group photo while you are still here. I don't know where